Welcome back to the Tama's Labs Startup Series, featuring the hottest startups in the world right now. I'm your host, Tripwire. Today on the show, a revolutionary platform that's transforming generative media by delivering lightning-fast, AI-powered images and videos in under a second. What if I told you that the image you're looking at, the video in your feed, the content flooding your screen right now, it wasn't captured by a camera or crafted by a designer hunched over Photoshop? What if it was just generated in real time by AI? We're already halfway there. And there's one company that's become the invisible infrastructure powering this shift, processing billions of AI-generated assets every month for Adobe, for Canva, for Shopify. It's called Fall, and it just raised $140 million to do something that sounds simple, but is brutally hard. Make generative AI so fast and so reliable that you don't even notice it's happening. Think about that for a second. The best technology is the technology you don't think about, the thing that just works. That's what they're building. Here's what Fall actually does. It's an API platform that gives developers instant access to over 1,000 production-ready AI models. Images, videos, audio, 3D content. You want to generate an image with Flux? It's there. Need video with Kling or Sora? Available. Audio transcription with Whisper? Done. All through one unified API that handles the messy infrastructure work, so developers don't have to think about it. But here's the thing. Access is just table stakes. Everyone can give you access. The real innovation is speed. Fall built something called the Fall Inference Engine that makes diffusion models run up to 10 times faster than standard implementations. That means generating a high-quality image in under a second instead of waiting around for 8 or 10 seconds. And I know what you're thinking. 8 seconds, 1 second, what's the difference? But when you're building an app that needs to generate thousands of images a day, that difference isn't just nice to have. It's the difference between a product that works and one that dies on the vine. It's the difference between your users loving you and your users leaving you. The platform operates on 3 layers. First, model APIs. Pre-optimized versions of popular models that just work out of the box. No tweaking, no troubleshooting. They work. Then there's the serverless infrastructure. And this is where it gets interesting. You can deploy your own custom models, and the system automatically scales from 0 GPUs to thousands of H100s or H200s in seconds. No capacity planning, no provisioning, no waiting for some ops team to approve your request 3 weeks from now. And finally, dedicated compute clusters for when you need to train or fine-tune models on demand. What makes this compelling is how Fall handles the problems that usually make generative AI infrastructure an absolute nightmare. You know, the fun stuff that keeps engineers up at night. Cold starts? Gone. Their serverless system keeps models warm and ready. Model compatibility issues? They've already done the optimization work. New model just dropped? Fall typically has it available on day 0, sometimes before the official release. That's not luck, that's infrastructure as a competitive advantage. They've also built something called the Advanced Sandbox. You can test and compare models side by side before committing to one. See exactly how different models perform on your specific use case. Check the speed, quality, cost. Then, deploy the winner with a few lines of code. It's the kind of developer experience that feels obvious once it exists, but required years of infrastructure work to make possible. The platform maintains 99.99% uptime while processing billions of requests daily. And when something does go wrong, Fall's engineering team works directly with customers through dedicated Slack channels. That's not typical for infrastructure platforms at this scale. That's relationship building. Building a new product?
Tamez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at tamez.ai.
So what problem is this actually solving? Because that's what matters, right? Not the technology for technology's sake, but what it unlocks. Generative AI inference is expensive and slow. Video and image models are compute-intensive beasts that require serious GPU firepower. For developers trying to build applications around these models, the infrastructure challenges are brutal. You're dealing with fragmented APIs across different model providers, inference times that make real-time applications impossible, cold start problems where the first request takes forever, complex GPU management that requires specialized expertise most teams don't have. This hits everyone building with generative AI. Individual developers creating web tools can't afford to manage their own GPU clusters. Mid-sized companies building AI-native platforms need reliability and scale they can't build themselves. Large enterprises like Adobe and Shopify want to integrate generative media into existing products without rebuilding their entire infrastructure stack. And the existing solutions don't really solve this. General cloud providers like AWS or Google Cloud offer GPU hosting, but they're not optimized for media workloads. They treat a diffusion model the same as any other workload, which means you're leaving massive performance gains on the table. And nobody likes leaving money on the table. Competing infrastructure providers might offer faster inference, but it's often locked behind proprietary APIs with vendor lock-in. And nobody else is doing day zero releases of new models or providing the kind of specialized support that media generation requires. Fall has been operating since 2021. The company serves over 2 million developers and powers billions of AI-generated assets monthly. Their customer list reads like a who's who of companies betting on generative AI. Adobe, Canva, Perplexity, Shopify. These aren't experimental integrations. These are production deployments handling real user traffic. The growth numbers tell the story. They had about 500,000 developers and $10 million in annual recurring revenue. By mid-2025, they'd crossed 2 million developers and hit $95 million in revenue. That's not incremental growth. That's a market exploding. And the funding reflects it. This $140 million Series D was led by Sequoia Capital, with participation from Kleiner Perkins, NVIDIA's venture arm, Andreessen Horowitz, and a roster of top-tier investors. The company's valuation tripled from $1.5 billion to $4.5 billion in just 4 months. By now, they're reportedly in talks at an $8 billion valuation. The platform was built by 3 founders who saw the opportunity before most people were paying attention. Berke Gur, who led machine learning at Coinbase, and Gorkem Yurtseven from Amazon started optimizing Stable Diffusion for speed and scale, back when everyone else was chasing large language models. They brought on Batuhan Taskaya as head of engineering. He's the youngest ever Python core developer and maintainer, which tells you something about the technical depth here. Their bet was that while everyone was focused on text generation, the real infrastructure challenge would be in media. They were right. Video now makes up over 80% of internet traffic, and NVIDIA's Jensen Huang has said that eventually every pixel will be generated, not rendered. Fall is building the infrastructure to make that possible. They're not just running existing models either. They released Flux Point 2 Turbo, a distilled version of Black Forest Labs' model that generates images in 8 steps instead of 50. It achieved the top ELO score among open-weight models while being 6 times more efficient. Cost per image? Less than a penny. That's the kind of optimization that makes new applications economically viable. The use cases span everything from digital advertising and e-commerce product visualization to gaming content, indie animation studios, virtual pets, immersive education experiences. Adobe's integrating Fall into Adobe Express to give users model choice beyond Firefly. Startups are building entire products on top of Fall's infrastructure, confident it'll scale when they do.
Oh, hey, friend. Do you like what you're hearing? Now you can have a ridiculously amazing podcast too. Check out holler.studio to get yourself one today.
What makes Val's approach work is focus. They're not trying to be a general-purpose cloud provider. They're not competing with AWS on breadth. They're going deep on one thing: making generative media models fast, reliable, and accessible. That means custom CUDA kernels optimized for diffusion models, proprietary inference engine improvements, day zero availability for new releases, the kind of specialization that only makes sense if you believe media generation is going to be massive. And the market's proving them right. When OpenAI released Sora, it hit the top of the App Store faster than ChatGPT did. Consumer demand for multimodal AI applications isn't coming, it's here. The companies building those applications need infrastructure that works. That's Val. Remember that idea about every pixel being generated instead of rendered? That future where AI creates content in real time based on what you need in the moment? It's not science fiction anymore. It's happening right now on infrastructure that makes it fast enough and cheap enough to actually work. The platforms you use every day are already integrating this technology. The difference between the ones that succeed and the ones that don't often comes down to whether the infrastructure can handle it. That's what $140 million is betting on. Not just that generative AI is the future, but that the companies building it need infrastructure built specifically for how these models actually work. Fast inference, instant scaling, reliable uptime, and the kind of developer experience that makes building feel easy, even when the underlying technology is incredibly complex. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to think about infrastructure. They just want it to work. And when it does, that's when the magic happens. Thank you for listening. You can show our podcast team some love with 5 stars and a follow. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Grep News. Thomas.